How many certifications do you need in order to land your first job in cybersecurity? What if I told you that I was able to get into the field as a pen tester without even bothering to get a single certification? And beyond that, I was able to double my salary, going from about 80K per year all the way to 166K before I even got my first certification. Now, in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly how I did it so that you can start incorporating the strategy today. The very first thing that I started out with were some early projects and quick wins. Now, these were not heavy hitter projects or even things that I really featured on my portfolio in the long run, but this stage was very instrumental in me to build up the interest and get those quick wins that helped me stay motivated in the tough times. Because make no mistake, if you're gonna learn something like cybersecurity, obviously there's a lot to it, there's a lot to learn. And so if you can find that inspiration early on because you do some things that are super cool and inspiring to you, that actually is going to really have a big impact on your longevity in this field, is what I found. So here's some just kind of fun projects that I did in the beginning, like back when I knew nothing about anything. If I go back to when I was in college, I was actually having a really rough time. You know, you might see me now and you'd be like, oh, wow, like he seems like everything just went so smoothly for him. You just had such an easy path. It's harder in my case and this and that. Let me just tell you that when I was in college, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was in a pretty dire situation. You know, I was about to go into my senior year of college and I was majoring in electrical engineering. I absolutely hated electrical engineering. The only reason that I got into it was I had a mentor at the time in high school. It was like, oh yeah, you should do this because you like math and you like science. And I was like, yeah, I guess. I don't know what else I would do. It sounds cool. You know, fast forward to senior year, I was hating my classes. I've been hating my classes for a long time, but I was so on the fence about changing to something because I'm like, oh, I'm already too invested. I don't want to feel like I'm giving up or like I'm quitting. But I remember long ago, like my freshman year, meeting all these people majoring in cybersecurity. And I'm like, wow, this sounds cool. If I were to ever change my major, I would love to do this. And so eventually I bit the bullet and I changed my major my senior year. There was so much doubt and uncertainty at that point. Like, where was I going to go from here? How was I going to kind of find my way in the working world? Like, was I going to be on the street, you know, after I graduated? Like, what was going to happen? Like, I really didn't know. All I knew was, hey, this stuff's pretty exciting and let me explore into this stuff. So that's when I just started being curious and probing into stuff. I think this is one of the best places that you could possibly start if you're early on in your journey. So some of the projects that I did, as you see on the screen here, I figured out how to kick my brother offline. I was looking into man-in-the-middle attacks and things like that. I found that okay, I can identify which IP is his on the network and write a script that will drop all of his packets and kick them off. That was a fun little project that I started with. And then, you know, I was in a fraternity as well at the time, and I found like, oh, okay, they're just using the default username password on their router settings. I can log into this and I can create a rule on the firewall that allows me to block anyone's MAC address from the network, meaning that I can find someone's laptop on the network and say, hey, all the devices are allowed to connect except for this person's laptop. So I was trying to prank one of my friends, but that prank backfired super bad because what I ended up actually doing was making that only his laptop could connect to the internet. And he was just confused. He's like, yeah, all you guys don't have internet, but I do. So if you don't have internet, just come to my room. And I was like, oh, you know what? I think I can fix this issue. So I end up fixing the issue. And I was like the hero of the fraternity. Later on, I told him the story of what actually happened. We had a good laugh about it. But another thing that I did was hacking into my dad's old laptop because he gave me his old laptop for my senior year because I was like, my laptop I was using was getting slow and I didn't want to buy a whole new one just for one last year of college. So I used his and I was kind of curious, like, maybe can I log into his account? And I found some tricks, some techniques online that I was able to apply to actually successfully hack in, like basically log into his user account. So I thought that was a pretty cool quick win. And then the last one here, getting my first reverse shell, hacking into my laptop from my desktop. Fortunately, I still have that photo and I was able to include it in this presentation here. You can see this photo of me all the way back from over a decade ago when I first did this exercise, just waving at myself from across the room. Definitely doing these quick wins. I can't stress enough how helpful these are. From this point, there was also a number of like more serious portfolio projects that I did. To be honest with you, not too many. Some of the things were freelancing, number one, and this was one of the biggest, most impactful things that I did early on that helped me down the line. And the reason that I say down the line is I didn't put it on my resume right away because you might be watching this and think, oh, well, that doesn't really count because it says free here. You wasn't getting paid for it. If I'm not getting paid for it, I can't put that on my resume because it's not legit, blah, 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 whatever narrative, right? I thought that way too. I'm going to level with you. I completely thought that way. But eventually, halfway into my career, I decided, you know what, I'm gonna put this on my resume just to test it, just to see. And every single hiring manager, recruiter that reached out to me, they absolutely loved that. They're like, oh wow, that shows you're being very proactive about, gaining experience. Even though you didn't have any experience at the time, you found a way to make it happen. That is the exact type of candidate that we're looking for in our recruiting process. And I was like, okay, well, I stand corrected. I should have been doing this from day one. So let me save you guys some time. If you're doing something like this, then definitely showcase that on your resume and things like that. So basically the way it worked is I was offering a free pen testing service to other people that were comp sci majors who were building apps and things like that at my college. So, if you're in college right now, that could be a good network to take advantage of. You have all these people around you that are in your extended network. Don't let that go to waste. I mean, you're already spending, maybe in some cases tens of thousands of dollars every year to go to this college. One of the biggest upsides of college is that network, so use what you're paying for. And then also another portfolio project I did was just a bunch of scripting in Bash, Awk, Python, various scripting programming languages to create automations for the IT job that I was at the time. So even if you're not working in cybersecurity at the moment, is there any way that you can involve automation, scripting, cybersecurity, or even something tangentially related into the job that you're doing now so that you can use that as part of your portfolio to land that cybersecurity job? That was exactly what I did, and it helped me a ton, not only with building my portfolio, but also learning key skills that would be very helpful for me on the job as well. And in terms of self-study, here's the things that I was doing at the time. Now, we have to keep in mind that this was a long time ago, like before the job market is what it currently is. So definitely stay tuned to the end of the video where I'm gonna be showing you how can we adapt this into the modern day job market. At the time, it only took me about 3 years because it was, to be honest, an easier job market, let's say. But it was difficult in other ways. One of the ways that it was more difficult back then is there weren't as many, fine-tuned resources available as there are today. So I didn't have Hack the Box in the very beginning. Eventually I did, and I started using that when it came out. I didn't have Try Hack Me or anything like that. So I used some other platforms. I used like OWASP WebGoat, which was like a vulnerable web application to learn web security. This was even before Portswigger Web Academy came out. I used some various books and things like that here and there. I did some courses on Cybrary back in the day, and I've heard from you guys that Cybrary is still around. So that's kind of crazy to me. I didn't even know that if that was still around or not, because I haven't really heard that mentioned too much anymore. But I don't know what the quality of the content's on there then. I mean, even back then, the quality was not amazing, but it did have some resources and stuff. So I went through some courses there. I went through VulnHub, which was like what everyone used before Hack the Box and stuff came out. And yeah, I just got some practice with self-study, things like that. But once again, caveat, it was a much less competitive job market back then. But despite that, I was still told that pen testing was oversaturated. I was still, highly encouraged to not pursue this path because there's everyone wants to do it. It's too difficult to get into. It's not entry level. It's complicated. Like all the stuff that you guys are hearing now, rest assured, I heard that even over a decade ago. So the next huge step, and I would account this for about 80% of the reason that I personally was able to make the move in the way that I did, was because of networking. And the way that I was able to create these opportunities, honestly, by taking advantage of working on site. So if you are in a position now where you're working hybrid or you're working on site and you hate it and you want to get into cybersecurity so you can work remote, understand that you can make the most of a bad situation. Because one advantage that it gives you being in an office is you have better networking opportunities with other people, especially if the company that you're working for has a cybersecurity team. You should most definitely be taking advantage of that. So what I did early on, pretty much as soon as I landed, shortly after landing my job in IT at the company that I was working for, I started befriending people on the red team and the pen testing team and stuff like that. And through just, having random, short conversations with them in the hallway, they started inviting me to local cybersecurity events, things like Austin Hackers Anonymous. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, Austin OWASP, and then even some weekly study groups that they used to do. Now, here is the key to networking that so many people get wrong. It's that they try to network in order to get something. And I know this is really difficult to kind of hold yourself back from doing because I get it. You want to make something happen out of it. But if you are going into networking trying to get something from someone else, they can almost always pick up on that. That's why it backfires for so many people. The real key to pulling this off is you need to literally go in and network people without expecting anything in return. Like you just need to give value to people and befriend people and things like that and not expect anything. Like, you have to be completely okay, like 100%, 1000% okay with the fact that you making these network connections might lead to nothing. And if you're giving a lot of value and you're befriending people, eventually, you know, the psychological component of reciprocity, they're going to want to help you, is the thing. But that's not the main intention. If you have some underlying motive behind it, I can rest assure you that like almost anyone is going to be able to pick up on that, and they're not going to feel too good about it, and it's just not going to work out too well. The other component to this is I made sure that I was a top performer in my current role that I was in within IT, which was the backup and recovery job. And because of that, when a good opportunity came my way and I had the management change, we had a new manager come in, and he used to work in the cybersecurity org at that same company. He saw that I was a top performer and that I had, you know, an interest in cybersecurity, and he was like, hey, you've been doing such a great job for us. I want to give you an opportunity if you're still interested in getting into cybersecurity. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I would love that. There was another guy at that same company that was also, he went to my same college, graduated with the same cybersecurity degree, and also wanted to get into cybersecurity. The manager didn't give him the opportunity because he was a low performer, because he wasn't putting forth his best effort. So going back to the law of reciprocity, if you're not doing much for someone, then they are decentivized to help you out. So when that opportunity potentially comes your way, they're going to pass you over in favor of someone else. Yes, there's an element of luck involved when it comes to this type of strategy, but you're also manufacturing some of your own luck. Because here's the thing, even when I got the opportunity and he set me up with an interview with the director of the cybersecurity team over there, I still had to use my skills in order to seal the deal on that opportunity. If I wasn't doing all these other things and these previous steps here, then even if I got that opportunity, I would have squandered it. I wouldn't have been able to land the job in pen testing right away. So that all of this stuff is cohesive. It all works together. It's all super important if you want to pull something like this off. Now, a quick side note here, when it comes to certifications, since that's what we're talking about in this video, right? About how I didn't need them. I actually did enroll in the OSCP after landing my very first job in pen testing, literally right after this point, and I landed my first pen testing job. Shortly after that, I enrolled in OSCP. And if any of you guys have been following my channel, this is around when I started my channel. I started it out actually as a vlog about my experience pursuing the OSCP. And by the way, if any of the OGs are around, feel free, please drop a comment on the video, letting me know that you've been around since that time. It'd be kind of cool to see if any of you guys are still here. You know, not expecting anything. If you're not, no worries. But if you are, I think that'd be kind of cool to sound off in the comments below. But it was a pretty long time ago at this point. I mean, I was like, oh man, I think that was like 8-9 years ago. So, well, the channel itself, the channel I created in 2018. Yeah, so pretty long time ago at this point, like 7 years. Anyhow, I did not pass on my first attempt. And to be honest with you guys, one of the most difficult challenges for me was to incentivize myself to go back and really hardcore pursue it. Because those of you that have the OSCP, you know that it requires a lot of intense studying and intense practice. You know, I know so many people that have been in the field 5+ years, they still don't have this thing. And you see like people that are brand new and they get it on their first try. A lot of that comes into how dedicated and focused in they are on studying for this thing. To be honest with you guys, I just didn't feel very incentivized to, because I kept getting higher paying jobs in cybersecurity. Like every year and a half to 2 years, I bumped my pay up significantly without even having this certification. So that was part of the reason why it took me so long to get this, because I just wasn't really reattempting it. I went back and got it for the challenge sake of it. I'm like, well, you know, I have all this content on it and stuff. I have to go get it, you know, for my own ego, for myself, right? And so I did go back and get it. But if I'm being completely honest with myself, for me personally, you know, your mileage may vary. For me personally, never once did the OSCP contribute to me making even $1 more in my career. And I can honestly say that because by the time, and I'll show you this, by the time I actually got the OSCP, I was already in a senior pen testing role, netting me about $200K per year. And that was kind of where I ended the 9-to-5 career, was at the $200K mark. And so that was the point that I got the cert. And so it didn't really contribute in that way. Now, what actually made all of this work for me? Well, there's a number of key pillars here that you're going to want to really hold yourself to if you want to also be able to pull off your own version of this. Number one, and most importantly, is that I never got complacent and I always kept learning and upskilling myself. This is one of the biggest killers of people's career growth in this field, right? You might be super motivated now to get that cybersecurity job, but there's a lot of people that they're super motivated in the beginning, and once they land that job, they kind of stagnate, they get complacent, and they're like, oh, I'm making good enough money now. I'm good enough now. And they kind of just taper off from their progression. So you want to make sure that you're always upskilling yourself. And number two, and here's a hack that a lot of people don't talk about that's super valuable, is start teaching pen testing to others. And there's a number of ways that you can do this. You don't have to be a YouTuber. You can make YouTube videos if you want, but if you have like demo calls, especially if you land a pen testing job, you're going to have these. But even if if you have some friends that are interested in learning, do a demo call with them and show them a new tool, a new technique, a new methodology, right? The rubber ducky method. If you can try and explain something to someone else, then that's going to force you to actually put all that material together and really organize that in your brain so that you're going to quickly identify what are the gaps in your knowledge and do you know the thing as well as you think that you do? And so in doing that, it's going to help you learn the stuff so much better. This has been one of my cheat codes throughout my career that I was able to leverage, not even just for getting the first job, but after that as well. And now, the other key pillars, any time there was downtime during work, I would reinvest that time into independent learning in cybersecurity. And I was also able to leverage my network through LinkedIn in order to manufacture opportunities where I had a bunch of recruiters on a weekly basis reaching out to me about job opportunities. So it was just basically a matter of whenever I was in the market to look for a new job, I would just simply start responding to them and following up on opportunities. And if you saw some of my previous videos, I referred to the fact that I never once formally applied to a job, and this is exactly how I was able to do that. It's just leveraging people reaching out to me, my network, and my track record, my skill set up at that point and experience. Once again, I want to double down on the fact that I'm leveraging my skills to seal the deal on these opportunities. I'm able to pass interviews and stuff because I'm doing this stuff. When someone's interviewing you, they're trying to figure out, do you know this stuff as well as someone that is actually doing it, right? When they're asking you these interview questions, at the end of the day, they want to find out, do you really do this stuff or not? Are you experienced or not? And so, yeah, you can try and fudge that. You can try and memorize a bunch of answers that ChatGPT gave you to different interview questions, and you could get, decently far with that. But at the end of the day, the best preparation is actually doing the stuff, right? Because if someone asks you some super nuanced question that you'll pretty much only know by doing it, if you've done it before, you're going to be able to explain that much easier than someone to try to memorize that answer and try to predict that might be a question on the interview, right? So that's the whole concept behind this. And just to show you, the first certs that I got in the field once I was hired were CRTP and then OSCP fairly after it. This was after I was already a senior in the field when I was working my senior pen testing role at Dell. And then after that, I picked up a few others, some even fairly recently within the last year or so. But I did not have a single certification until June of 2022. And I've been in the field for, over a decade, like I told you guys. So now that we know all that, how can we actually adapt this strategy for the current job market? Because look, the world's always changing. I explained to you how I made this happen a decade ago, but things change, right? So what is the relevant updates for this path if you want to go and install this on your own and start making some serious progress in your career to break into the field? Number one thing that you need to understand is that LinkedIn is not as reliable as it once was. Back in the day, you could coast off of LinkedIn, and I was able to do that. I showed you, I never had to formally apply to a job ever again. I'm not saying that you can do the same. Maybe you can, but it's going to be harder to pull off than it was back in the day because it's now a lot more oversaturated on LinkedIn and stuff. I still have recruiters reaching out to me pretty consistently, but not as frequently as it used to be, let's say maybe 6-7 years ago, because there's a number of reasons for that. Number one is the job market is a lot more competitive as well. I don't have to harp on this for too long. I'm pretty sure everyone watching this video knows that, the job market is tough, this and that. I don't want to, there's enough people dooming and glooming over the job market, I think, right? But also the fact that companies put a much greater emphasis on experience. And so what this means is that certs are even less valuable now when it comes to breaking into the field than they were. So I showed you, it's like, even back then I broke into the field with no certs. Now they're even more so emphasizing the experience over everything else. And the main reason for this is that we are actually in a recession. but it's not the recession that you might be thinking. You see, we are in what is known as a trust recession. And just to prove this to you here, I have a survey done by the US General Social Survey that is the world's largest person-to-person trust survey in the world. And what they found is that we are actually in the lowest point of person-to-person trust than we've ever been in the history of them collecting this data here. And so the way that something like this comes into play when it comes to job searching is that these employers, they don't trust you anymore. So it's not enough just to be like, oh, I have these pieces of paper, I know how to do the job. They're not trusting that, right? I mean, there's also, more black market things that are happening too, like people are buying certs and this and that. They're hiring people and they're finding that like, oh, this person has all these credentials, but they don't know how to do the job, and then they lose a ton of money. I remember I worked with this guy that had a computer science degree from Michigan State University, which is like a well-known, reputable university in America, right? And it was supposed to be a great program and all this stuff. And he had all this stuff on, they don't really do certs as much there, but he had like a few recommendations from people that were at the company that said, hey, we recommend this person for the job. And I remember my coworker had to stop recommending him for these jobs because it was making him look bad, because this guy was bombing the interview so incredibly bad, because it became very apparent to people that actually do this stuff that, yeah, this person's not qualified. This person has no idea what they're doing. So this is a company's worst nightmare. In order to actually overcome this trust recession gap, we need to look at other ways other than just the lazy approach of, hey, I have this piece of paper, trust me, I can do the job. Let's actually prove that to them with things like networking with people, building connections so that people can vouch for you, but also having the skills so when they vouch for you, that you can actually do the job, and look for ways to stand out with things beyond just what everyone else has on their portfolio. I remember when I was tasked with evaluating these candidates and doing some of the interviews and things like that, I quickly noticed one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of you guys are making out there is everyone has identical looking resumes, nothing standing out. It's all the same stuff. It's always like hack the box, try hack me, OSCP, security plus, maybe they have a degree or something in some tech field or cyber or something. And then they list network security, some web and Active Directory stuff. And that's pretty much the boilerplate resume, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of thousands. So when you go on LinkedIn, you see 500 applicants, 1,000 applicants, like 98% is all just carbon copies of what I just mentioned there. So looking for ways to actually stand out and actually following a proven path that has gotten people into the field, gotten people success, things like that is more important than ever before. Also looking for ways to gain experience and things like that. Like I said, the number one thing that they're actually looking for. Because if you have experience, I mean, there's no better track record than that. If you've been doing this stuff professionally, then they would be pretty confident in that compared to just, say some of these other things that we listed off. So if you're looking to stand out in today's job market by learning the right things so that you can actually have a promising career in cybersecurity, then check out the video on screen right now where I cover the top 3 most future-proof cybersecurity focus areas. And if you'd like a done-for-you system to help you land your first cybersecurity job in 6 to 8 months, then go down below and book a call.